Now, the Buckeye Extra podcast with Rob Oller, Bill Rabinowitz, and Joey Kaufman from the Columbus Dispatch.
Hello, Buckeye fans. Welcome back to the Buckeye Extra Football Podcast. I'm Joey Kaufman, joined by Rob Oller and Bill Rabinowitz. We are here back from the improvement week, previewing Ohio State's upcoming game against Marshall on Saturday, the final non-conference game. Ohio State called it an improvement week, so I hope both of you two have been out there improving at your respective typewriters.
I've tried to improve. I try to improve every day, Joey. I try to improve every day, as do you. Rob, I don't know. Do you?
I wake up, first thought is improve. I've got that right there. The word improve. I touch it when I leave the office, or I enter the office. Those who improve will be champions.
Yeah.
Your sentences are going to sing a little extra for this game.
Yeah. Marshall, the thundering herd.
It's like my special guest.
Bill has brought his dog onto the
moving
podcast.
Moving right along.
They're not playing the Huskies this week, Bill. There's no use in bringing Ellie on and talk about the Huskies.
I think Ellie would probably have a little more insight than her owner at this point. You know,
Hey, leave Mrs. Sportswriter out of it.
Okay, I was talking about you, but
Oh, okay.
all right. Nothing like dead air here.
No, it's Marshall. It's let's face it. This is essentially Game 3 of the Buckeyes' extended preseason. I mean, not to denigrate Marshall. I think Ohio State fans remember 20 years ago when it took a Mike Nugent 55-yard field, I think, to beat them at the buzzer, beat them at the end. This is not the same Marshall team, and this is not the same Ohio State team. Big Ten play starts next week, and this is the last tune-up, and that's but it'll be a different look because Marshall has gone to the air raid. It's going to be a bit of a different challenge.
Marshall has gone to the air raid, which is not usually the recipe of upset-minded teams to beat Ohio State, because the tenet of the air raid is to throw the ball around and to play at a fast tempo and extend plays, or extend the game by running more plays. Usually, if you're going to come into Ohio Stadium and try to maybe pull off something that is difficult, you want to shorten the game. And so I'm not sure that is the style that's going to really challenge the Buckeyes. They brought in a new offensive coordinator this year in Seth Dodge, who was previously an assistant at Purdue, a former Mike Leach quarterback. But it's been a bumpy transition for them so far. They lost by a couple scores at Virginia Tech 2 weeks ago after their opening win over Stony Brook, an FCS school. So it remains to be seen how adept they are at spreading it out, throwing it around.
Most interesting thing about this matchup is just that they're both coming off. Well, I can't call it bye weeks because Joey's head will explode. They were both idle last week, Ohio State and Marshall. And so, is there any rust on either of these teams? I mean, really, we're grasping for straws looking at storylines here. We'll see if there's an evolution of Will Howard, I think. See if he continues to improve. Because he really needs to get all kind of the bugs out of the system before Big Ten play. Because I'm still,
no, he doesn't.
I'm still curious to see how he does against Big Ten talent.
Joey and I looked up Ohio State's history under Ryan Day after off weeks, and it hasn't been an issue. The rust has not been an issue. They've pretty much blown out everybody. Last time Ohio State had a challenge after an off week was in 2019 or 2018. That was Urban Meyer's last year when they struggled to beat Nebraska 36-31. But under Day, they've just cruised. So whether they've handled it right, whether they've gotten good opponents or bad opponents, whatever, it hasn't been an issue. It's funny about Marshall is even though they've gone to the air raid, they've been more effective running the ball than they have been passing it. So the quarterback's completing like 44% of his passes.
Yeah, he completed 36, or it was below 40% in the loss to Virginia Tech.
They were actually in that game at halftime and really in the third quarter, score-wise. And then VTech just really pulled away and put it to them. But not that VTech's a world beater either at this point. But I mean, I would expect Marshall to be somewhere between an Akron and a Western Michigan. Somewhere, they're in their zone. So look at the scores of Ohio State's first 2 games, and then look what this will be. It's about the same.
I think they are at least statistically better than both of those MAC schools, but you're sort of picking it at teams who are basically, are you the 120th something worst team in the FBS, or are you the 90 to 100th worst team in the FBS? I mean, you're not a huge difference, but they are a little better on paper than those 2 MAC opponents. I think it should be noted.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, they should. They're still what? What's the
39.5 point spread? I mean, if it's under, let's say it's under 25, then you say, okay, you might have a game here. When it's a 39 point spread, I mean, it should not be a game. I mean, it just shouldn't. And
of course, Akron was a game for the first quarter?
And then it wasn't. Well, right. Yeah, but the first game, and you always have the, whatever crazy stuff in the first game. But
give us something to write.
Charles
Shocker.
Charles
we get an App State situation.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Could be a shocker.
App State was a good team. App State was a really good team that year.
Well, yeah. I'm just saying. What? So are there any elements to keep an eye on? What do you want to see? Saturday. What curiosity? I'm not talking about what Ohio State needs to do to improve. What are you guys curious to see?
Well, it's Donovan Jackson's first game this year, the left guard, their best offensive lineman. Austin Cerebell has played pretty well as a fill-in, but Donovan Jackson's an All-American caliber player, at least they think he is. And to get their line whole and see how they perform, I think is probably the number one thing that I want to see. I would expect this defense to create some turnovers. I think that when you throw the ball a lot, now they're going to try to get rid of the ball quickly, which means you could have a lot of tip passes. You could have that kind of stuff. But I want to see the defense create havoc. I don't think Marshall's going to just try to pound the ball and drive 80 yards in 15 plays. I don't think that's what they're going to do. So I want to see does the offensive line build on what they did last game, which was much better with Donovan Jackson. I would expect them to do that. I would expect them to run for 250 yards. I would think that Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins would each run for 75 yards apiece at least. James Peoples will probably get in and play a decent amount. And I had said to Joey early in the season, I think that Ohio State's backup running backs, the James Peoples and whoever else, I think they're going to score 10 touchdowns this year because they're going to play so much, and they're pretty good. So I think that James Peoples is going to outscore a lot of people in the Big Ten this year just because he's going to get a pretty decent amount of playing time, and he's a pretty good player.
Devin Brown will probably see some time too, and needs to be ready. I mean, we look at what happened at Texas. Quinn Ewers goes down with some kind of oblique issue, and Mr. Manning steps in, throws five TDs, some ridiculous number. Really lit it up down there. So, that's the question. I'm not sure Ohio State has, they don't have a backup like that. They just don't. I mean,
nobody does.
Well, Texas does.
Other than Texas.
Yeah, Texas does. So, we'll see what happens, how much time. I guess the point being here that, they need to get Brown in the game, give him some time. I assume they'll have that opportunity. Put, Julian Sayin in, see what he can do. It'd be interesting, again, to see the pecking order. I assume it would go Brown and Sayin. And after that, probably Keen Holtz,
yep.
I would think. So I don't know. This is where you fine tune some stuff. Although, I think we do need to step back. We've said it. It's Marshall. And Joey, maybe you can confirm this. Doesn't Ohio State have something like the 122nd or 127th easiest strength of schedule so far? I think it's pretty extreme. So
I believe it's even lower than that. It's pretty low, but I think it's sort of a moot point for the most part because the schedule is obviously not front-loaded. They're going to play Oregon, Nebraska, Penn State, Michigan. The strength of schedule by the time they get to the end of the year is
it's like Michigan a year ago, essentially. Michigan didn't play anybody.
Right.
And they did what they had to do when they did.
But Michigan didn't even have Oregon on its schedule last year. So, I mean, Oregon in and of itself is like a non-conference game. It was 3 years ago in 2021 where they played them in September, in addition to Penn State and Michigan. So now they're a conference opponent, but the schedule, people have been all up in arms about that. Ohio State fans arguing with people on social media. And this is the same fan base that was deriding Michigan for its preseason last year. So what comes around goes around, but it is, I think, a little bit of a silly argument because it's basically just the way the games land on the schedule. They're going to have a good strength of schedule at the end of the year. And it's also sort of an archaic argument in this era of college football. I mean, who cares what your strength of schedule is? If Ohio State wins the Big Ten, they're going to have a first round bye in the playoff.
It's more, I totally agree with that. I guess my point was they haven't faced anybody to really give them a test. So how good are they? That's kind of the idea.
You're right. It's from an academic standpoint.
Right.
Evaluating Ohio State and trying to suss how much better they are than last year. That point is taken. We don't have a great idea yet because they haven't played anybody of really of consequence.
Even Denzel Burke yesterday, when he was asked during player interviews, is there anything that's kind of disappointed you this year? I think that was the question. He said something like, I wish we played somebody good. I'm paraphrasing him, but that was essentially his point. And, and Denzel Burke, I mean, he's a candid guy. It was funny. I just did a story on him talking about his targeting call. And he started the interview by saying, don't ask me about the targeting call. I get nothing to say about that. And it didn't take a whole lot of prodding. And he went off and called it a bull crap call. And, I think it probably was. It was a 50-50 kind of thing. I mean, his helmet did make contact with him, but it was a glancey blow. And it was the second. Anyway, but it was just funny that Denzel Burke kind of said, we want some challenges. We haven't been challenged yet. So this defense that hasn't allowed a touchdown, hasn't allowed an opponent to get, I believe, even inside the 30, let alone the 20, because both of Akron's field goals were 48 and 49 yards, I think. So I think that's right. But so this is a defense that hasn't been challenged. At least Marshall with throwing the ball is going to test them at least in a different way. But Ohio State's not going to get tested against a good offense until Oregon, because next is Michigan State and then Iowa.
Yeah, I do not expect Marshall to really have enough weapons and really familiarity with their new offense to challenge Ohio State at all when their offense on the field. I do think if we are sort of trying to maybe stretch the way this game could be at least a sort of barometer for Ohio State, it's probably going to be Marshall's defense, because they do have a pretty good front. Ryan Day's brought that up this week, and they do have a good pass rusher in Mike Green, who's somebody that people have brought up as somebody who could be drafted maybe next year or the year after. He's a transfer from Virginia, has 3.5 sacks. So Ohio State's offensive line, that's been a position that's received scrutiny for deserved reasons, especially the way they finished out in the Cotton Bowl last year. And the pass protection has been good so far this year, but this will be a slight step up in competition. So that, to me, is probably the position or the matchup that I would keep your eyes the closest on for trying to get a gauge of how good or improved Ohio State's offensive line actually is.
Remember when Ohio State played Buffalo about, 10 years ago, something like that? He was 15 maybe, and Khalil Mack. It's just everyone kind of went, who's this guy? I mean, we'd heard a little bit about him, but that was the first time he kind of exploded on the national stage. I don't think this guy's anything like that. But, there at least is a history of guys coming into the horseshoe from so-called lower programs and making a name for themselves. And look, that's what the Marshalls of the world want to do. This is their crack at playing in front of 100,000 people, and the horseshoe, nobody expects them to win a game. We know the Marshall has a terrific history. I mean, we know the tradition. We know the tragedy that the program endured 50 years ago. It's a very proud program. So they're going to come into Columbus and give it all they got. I just don't think what they've got is nearly enough.
Well, they do have one thing, and their coach brought this up, that they do have Tudor's Biscuit World.
Yes, I was going to bring that up.
And they are any Ohio State player that transfers to Marshall, the NIL deal down there is Tudor's Biscuit World. And I have been to Tudor's Biscuit World once.
And
it was straight out of Deliverance, the movie.
what?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was in the hills. It was in the hills of West Virginia,
Oh no!
and
You're gonna get letters.
we went in there, and I thought it was just going to be all biscuits. We were a little disappointed. It wasn't just like these authentic biscuits. It was more like sandwiches. I guess they do have a lot of biscuits, but point being, Marshall, I guess Tudors is based in Huntington, and good on them. Maybe some of the linemen who like to pack those calories in will consider the transfer to Marshall, and they'd have to be like fourth stringers probably, and show up playing for the Herd.
I got nothing.
You got nothing. You got nothing on that. I mean, you're speechless.
I'm speechless. It's like our place in Altoona. We have a place in Altoona that we love.
Well,
Tim's place.
The way you sold Tudor's biscuits did not. Well, I've heard good things about it. You didn't. But you didn't.
Right, nice. No, man, that's pathetic. That's pathetic. Now he's just trying to kiss up. He's hoping to get an
nice thing.
Joey's hoping to get an NIL deal from Tudors. I've heard good things about it. Have you been there?
No, but I did drive through West Virginia.
Oh, geez.
Summer, and my better half mentioned that she had it and had good things to say about it.
Well,
we did not stop there, though.
I didn't say it didn't taste good. I never said that. I said the location was remote.
Okay. All right.
There's one in Ohio in Xenia.
Well,
why you would know this? Why do you know this?
I just Googled it.
Oh, okay. All right. So they have two locations: Huntington, West Virginia, and Xenia, Ohio.
And in the sticks, wherever I was.
Oh, so yours was a different one. Yours wasn't.
This was not in Huntington. This was like.
Oh, okay. I thought this was the Huntington one.
This was down in the holler.
That's most of West Virginia, right?
Well, some of it's up in the holler, I guess, but down in the holler,
Okay.
Anyhow, that's what you got when you're Marshall. Your claim to fame is you used to be pretty good. Sadly, Bill mentioned the tragedy. I think it was 1970, right?
1970, a plane crash that killed.
Yeah, plane crashed, and the players were. So, We Are Marshall was the movie. Matthew McConaughey. Did you guys see the movie?
I did.
I never saw it. How is it?
It's Hollywood cheesy. I mean, I'm sure that there are all kinds of factual liberties taken, I would guess. But it's your standard rise from tragedy kind of story.
Okay.
In a couple hours of entertainment, it's fine. I don't think it's history.
Well, they've had some great quarterbacks. They had
Chad Pennington, Randy Moss. Look, it's a very proud history. I mean, they've had a great.
They had Randy Moss. Who was the other quarterback? Drawing a blank.
Chad Pennington is the one I remember.
No, also, it'll come to me. But yeah, they've got a proud history. They used to be in the MAC. Now they're what, in the Sun Belt?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can't keep track of these group of five ones. I mean, they keep switching every year, it seems. But yes, they are.
One note on Marshall, Mickey Jackson, who was Archie Griffin's running backs coach in 1974 and 75, and was on staff for a few years at Ohio State after that, played at Marshall and was an assistant at the school as well during the year they had the plane crash. He was on the road recruiting when that happened. But he's got a pretty incredible life story, and he coached. So I talked to him this summer for the story I did on Archie, and he talked a little bit about that.
Byron Leftwich. That's who I was.
Oh, of course.
Byron Leftwich. So,
he was great. He was.
Yeah. So they've got a good history, and they got a faithful fan base. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, I tell you what, there'll be some green in that stadium.
Yeah.
On Saturday.
There's always green in the Ohio State. Ross Bjork hopes there's more green coming in.
That kind of green.
Yeah.
But I mean, when Akron and Western Michigan came, there was a very, very small contingent of those fans. I would expect that there would be a decent number of Marshall fans, honestly. And I mean, I think there are a decent number of Marshall grads that live around here. I mean, you hear about them. They're quite vocal. The Marshall fans are
the Marshall podcast.
Marshall, they're
quite vocal.
They're devoted fans. Good for them.
That's from all the hollering down in the holler.
Oh, geez.
Don't at me.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
What else? I mean, what else? What's your score prediction?
Oh, boy, I can't remember what I did. I think something like 52-7, maybe?
I think I had that too.
What?
Very similar. Maybe I had
I always
50,
want that token field goal. Because you
I
always
had
feel like somebody's
56.
going to stop
50.
at some point.
I think it was 57-7 maybe I had, or 50, something like 56-7. Maybe I'll say that.
Okay, Joey, you picked a shutout, didn't you?
picked a shutout.
Back to
Which
back.
team? For which team?
I picked Ohio State
Oh, okay.
to shut out the Marshall Thundering Herd. It would be the first back-to-back shutout since 2009, since they shut out Toledo and Illinois in consecutive weeks. So that's something to watch for Ohio State fan.
How about around the Big Ten in 30 seconds? Illinois, kind of a surprise team, looked pretty decent. Speaking of the Illini, I would say, they and Nebraska are kind of, although Nebraska, I'm not sure how surprising it was. I thought Matt Rule would bring them back, but Illinois looks decent. Rutgers, I mean, we got some pretenders going on, that's for sure. But for now, the normal bottom dwellers have risen a little bit. Now they have competition issues too. They haven't played really too many teams, but maybe not shocking, but I have last in my Big Ten power rankings, number 18, the UCLAs, UCLA.
Indiana drilled them
They're
at the Rose Bowl.
They lose. They get drubbed by Indiana at the Rose Bowl. They go to Hawaii and barely win. Oh, man, it's roll out the basketball time.
We did learn at Big Ten Media Days from their coach, though, that UCLA is, in fact, located in Los Angeles. That was probably the highlight of Big Ten Media Days, is when he got up there and said, UCLA is in Los Angeles. Thanks.
There was clearly not much to sell about the state of the program there. I think you may have an idea why Chip Kelly was not in a rush to return, or was certainly looking at other possible options.
And you know what? I've never quite understood that, Joey. You know the pulse of that area, but I mean, regardless of their rep, they still have how many million people in Southern California? Like how many? I mean, it's just ridiculous the recruiting bed, hot recruiting bed they have there. They don't have to go far to recruit, and there's USC, and who else is down there? San Diego State. I mean, in terms of Southern, it's not like you've got to work that hard. But they've always been USC shadow. They had a few years, in the 60s, Gary Beeban, they had some, they won a national title. They shared a national title with Ohio State. I want to say that was, I don't know what year, 57 maybe? But, and they've had some decent talent. They've sent the guys to the NFL, but they just, I don't know if it's a culture thing. Joey, you covered them. What's the problem there? I mean, that would put them so far down.
And sure, you're in a good backyard, good fertile recruiting territory, but everybody else in the Pac-12 recruits there. Oregon comes down, Washington comes down, Utah comes into Southern California, Arizona State. I mean, you got to fend off a lot of schools. So I think it's a difficult job from that standpoint, that a lot of people try to come in there and recruit. They don't have a great game day environment. Also, they play at the Rose Bowl.
Right.
Which is not at all close to campus. It's sometimes a 45-minute drive or so from Westwood. So
got to be half full at best.
Yeah, and they started putting tarps in the Rose Bowl. So yeah, they are a good pick to finish at the bottom of the Big Ten this year.
Well, Purdue is making a run for it. I mean, that was the worst loss in school history. It's Notre Dame, Notre Dame team that lost to Northern Illinois the week before. And Notre Dame just crushed them. So
Notre Dame had something to prove. So that was unfortunate for Purdue that they were coming off. Notre Dame was coming off that loss. But I'm with you. I think I've got Purdue 17th in the Big Ten, and it's anybody. You could just roll the dice, flip a coin for the bottom 5 teams. They'll all be pretty much in the same place. Mark, let's put it this way: Marshall would not be the worst team in the Big Ten.
They would be.
Huh?
Yeah, they would be the worst team in the Big Ten.
I'm not sure. Usually, well, let's put it this way. I did a study once that the best MAC team, now Marshall's not the best team in the Sun Belt probably, but the best MAC team almost every year would finish middle of the pack in the Big Ten.
It's fine, but that's not an analogous situation. If you were to make the argument for Toledo, which just won Mississippi State, then I would be
Well, Marshall, Toledo, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, Toledo would not be the worst team in the Big Ten, but
Right, they'd be about in the middle.
I'm not sure I'd say middle.
They would be. I'm telling you. They did a whole thing on it. It's the best team on a really good year for a really good MAC team, and that looks like Toledo this year. They'd be. The Big Ten is awful at the bottom. Anyhow, who cares? We've extended this beyond the statute of limitations here.
I'll send us out. Thanks everybody for joining us on the Buckeye Extra Football Podcast. That was Rob Oller, Bill Rabinowitz. I'm Joey Kaufman. Thanks for joining us and listening. And stay tuned to dispatch.com for coverage leading up to the Marshall game and in the days afterward and ahead to Michigan State. Thanks for listening.
Be sure and subscribe to the Buckeye Extra podcast in the iTunes Store, the Google Play Store, or on Stitcher.